Hey everyone, and welcome to RUBIN'S Mind Lab, where we break down the latest research into what it really means. Ever feel like the word stress is used for just about everything? Today we're diving into some fascinating psychology research that asks if we even need that word. You know how sometimes a word just sort of fades into the background, and we use it for so many different things that it almost loses its meaning? Well, that is exactly what researchers are saying about the word stress. In this study, they looked at how we talk about stress, and they found something really interesting. They argue that the way we talk about stress is actually making it harder to understand what is going on scientifically. And they have some pretty smart ideas on how to fix it. So, what is the big takeaway? These researchers are saying that when we talk about stress, we're often talking about at least 3 different but connected parts of a process. They're proposing we use more specific words for these parts instead of just saying stresses all the time. And believe it or not, they say we don't actually need the word stress to describe what we're studying in stress research. They want us to be super clear about exactly what we mean when we're talking about stress. And to help us do that, they've even created a kind of checklist. Let's get into it. The big problem is that stress is like a giant umbrella term. There is no single definition that everyone agrees on. This ambiguity makes it really hard to build knowledge step by step to really know if the measurements we're taking actually represent what we think they do and to put different research findings together. These scientists did a deep dive, looking at how the idea of stress has changed over time, why it is so confusing, and if we can actually get by without using the word stress itself. And their answer is pretty much yes. They found that we can describe what is happening more precisely by using terms like stressor, response, and health outcomes. These are like the main ingredients in the stress recipe, if you will. Think about it. When something happens that challenges us, it's a stressor. That could be a big life event, a daily annoyance, or even something from our childhood. The paper explains that stressors are basically things that put demands on us. Then, we have a reaction to these stressors, and that's the stress response. This response can show up in our bodies, our emotions, our thoughts, and our behaviors. And finally, all of this can lead to health outcomes, which are the longer-term effects on our well-being, whether good or bad. The authors point out that because stress is so broad, researchers often end up studying very different things but calling it all stress. This makes it hard to compare studies, build on previous work, or even understand what is really going on when someone experiences something difficult. It is like trying to build a house with different tools for the same job, or using the same wrench for a screw and a bolt, you just strip it. So, how did we get here? The paper traces the history. It seems like the word stress originally came from physics, where it had a very specific meaning related to forces and materials. When it got borrowed by medicine and then social sciences, the meaning kind of stretched and morphed. Walter Cannon, a famous physiologist, started using it to talk about how our bodies react to challenges to maintain balance, what he called homeostasis. Then, Hans Selye really popularized the concept, but in doing so, he used stress to mean a lot of different things: the cause of the reaction itself, and even the outcome. This, the authors suggest, is a big reason why things got so fuzzy. Selye himself listed over 150 different stressors and 100 different manifestations of stress, which is a huge range. Another reason for the confusion is that the way people think about stress in everyday life is different from how scientists might define it. For most of us, stress might mean feeling anxious, overwhelmed, or agitated. While scientists sometimes include these feelings, their definitions can be much broader and more technical. Plus, different scientific fields, like psychology, biology, and medicine, have studied stress with their own theories and methods, leading to even more varied definitions. It's like a game where everyone's playing with different rulebooks. The paper argues that our current ways of understanding and measuring stress often fall short. Concepts need to be coherent, meaning they group similar phenomena, and differentiated, meaning they're distinct from other concepts. With stress, it is often unclear. For example, is a high cortisol level a measure of stress, or is it part of a broader anxiety response? It can be hard to tell. They also point out that some definitions are almost circular, like saying a stressor is something that causes a stress response, and a stress response is a response to a stressor. That doesn't really tell us much new. This is the really provocative question they ask, and their answer is a resounding no. We don't need to use the word stress. They give examples of studies that look at things like major life events, childhood trauma, or daily hassles. They didn't need the word stress to describe these things. They just used the more specific terms. When it comes to the body's reaction, they say instead of physiological stress response, we could just talk about immune responses, hormonal responses, or brain responses. Likewise, when we're talking about how people feel, like their mood, they suggest affective responses or somatic responses are more precise than stress responses. The only tricky one, they admit, is perceived stress. Because the whole point is how someone perceives stress, so you kind of need the word. But even then, they suggest we should.